What's going on? Welcome back to ednews.com. It's your host, EJ Carrion, and today we have a special guest, Dr. Sharonica Hardin-Bartley with the School District of University City and K-12 Dive Top 5 Superintendent to look for in 2022. Sharonica, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I am great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
We are good. How was celebrating MLK Day for the district and your community?
It's always a great opportunity to pause and just reflect on his life and his legacy. So it was a great day.
Awesome. Well, I would love to know context on what is University City like? I know you grew up there, and so can you give us some demographics of the community?
Yeah, so I grew up in St. Louis. University City is a suburb of St. Louis, and we service 2,600 students pre-K through 12. We have 8 buildings, including an alternative program. We are predominantly African-American, 87% African-American, and 100% of our students are considered free or reduced lunch because we do have what's called the community eligible program. So all of our students eat lunch for free. We are really a unique district. We have an abundance of richness, of history, of tradition. We are a district that is thriving and really working to get better around racial equity, around the educational outcomes for students. And we are a district that has a lot of work to do. So very unique in that space, very rich district around tradition and history, and a district that understands that we are on the move and that we have much work to do.
Yeah. What is kind of top priority in your space? I can't imagine you're seeing superintendents across the country kind of retire, resigning, considering a break from being a leader of a space like a superintendent, which has a lot of priorities. What are some things you're hearing across your peers and the country as top priorities as we kind of get through this semester and prepare for 2022?
One of the things that we hope for 2021, 2022 is that we would get back to the new normal and having some sense of calm after a storm. And we're still in a storm. COVID-19 is still very present. It is having a devastating impact on our work in schools, from the social emotional perspective to the academic perspective and just overall quality of life. So I would say if there isn't a superintendent in our country that is focused on social emotional well-being of the people that service students, of the students that come to us every day, of the broader community, then I would like to know where they are and what they're doing, because that is truly my reality. I always say that if our children aren't well, physically and emotionally, we can't expect for educational outcomes. If our teachers are not well, we can't. The trends that we're seeing with the superintendency, many are choosing to leave the education profession altogether for various reasons. And so we want to make sure that we can attract and keep quality people throughout the organizational systems, throughout our school systems, so that we can create the conditions so that our teachers, our students, and our entire community can be well.
Yeah. I was going to ask that kind of, how's the staff capacity and how's that kind of conversation happening around leadership? I mean, we're seeing school districts in Alabama, Texas, who are saying, hey, we actually need to go virtual, not because we're afraid of numbers, but just to get the capacity of staff back functioning. How's things going for you guys?
We're holding on by a thread, and I say that literally. We have very committed teachers who are going to show up for our children, but they're also navigating COVID. They're also navigating the impact that it's having on their families. We deal with quarantines daily. We're contact tracing. We're tapping into skill sets that I had never heard of a contact tracing 2.5 years ago. So we are really, as we think about capacity, I always say you can't pour from an empty cup. And so making sure that we're able to uplift people and give them what they need so that they can come in and do the great work that we know is possible for public educators. We are losing our best and brightest. Again, we have teachers who are choosing other professions. They're choosing other ways of living. And the impact is going to be huge, and it's going to be felt for many years. And so what we aim to do is do things like, practice wellness, talk about self-care. We were able to reduce or enhance our academic calendar to allow teachers to be off the entire week of Thanksgiving. A small gesture, not a win scenario, because it did cause, some hardship for families. But again, if our teachers aren't able to show up, if our leaders aren't able to show up and do the work that we know they're capable of doing, we don't have a public school system. You can't run a system without the people. Your people are your most valuable resource. And we have to understand that, and we have to embrace that fact, and we have to put our actions behind our words and not just give lip service.
Yeah. And I saw an EdSurge article recently talking about, the system needing to become flexible for the humans who've been flexible this whole time. And you mentioned teachers choosing other lifestyles. What are some of the reasons that you're hearing of why they're transitioning maybe out of the profession?
I think burnout. I think that while we were virtual, many districts were virtual last school year, it's hard to teach kindergarten in a virtual space. We literally pivoted from what we know around educating, knowing the importance of relationships and being able to connect with students in a physical and a personal way. That was completely disrupted. So I think the burnout, I think that honestly, some of the rhetoric that's happening around schooling, how some school systems are under attack for how they teach, what they teach, not understanding that racial equity is important, and it is important to talk openly and explicitly about racial equity, and it doesn't diminish any group. It just affirms and validates those groups that have historically been marginalized, and that it is a moral and ethical responsibility for us as educators to have those difficult conversations. I think that finances, we have teachers that in some systems are significantly underpaid. So they're able to go out and seek another profession and have more financial resources to care for their families. I think the fear associated with COVID-19, districts addressed COVID in different ways. We have a very polarizing topic around masks. Masks are proven to be an effective mitigating measure. And some school systems are really putting teachers, in my opinion, on the front line at risk when they don't have a solid mask mandate, just to keep everyone safe. So there are a magnitude of reasons that are causing this exit. This is not a new phenomenon. We've always had individuals who seek other professions that are educators. Now with COVID, that impact is magnified even more due to the pandemic.
Yeah. As you were sharing it, I would imagine like thinking of time and flexibility. I think that's as this generation kind of gets older, the millennials, and then the Gen Zers, time. A lot of people say their number one priority is flexibility with their time. They'll give up high raise to be able to have control of that time. And as a teacher, it's kind of difficult to do that. And a part of virtual, you might have been able to taste that flexibility a little bit more. How do you see virtual playing a part and flexibility playing a part as you think about what's next with all this virtual stuff and all this, flexibility, opportunities, possibility, like you mentioned, Thanksgiving for staff.
Yeah, I think that we're going to have to listen to our educators and listen to our children. You talked about Gen Z and millennials. We also have the Alpha and Gen G. So that's a whole new group.
I'm glad you knew what they were called. I didn't know what they were called yet, so I'm glad you knew.
Well, those are the babies that are in kindergarten through They're probably like freshmen in college. So
Yeah.
that generation is even more agile.
Yeah.
And these are babies that have no idea what the world would be without an iPad, for example.
Hmm.
And so we have to be creative. And so what we're looking at is ways to give that flexibility, perhaps a 4-day work week where that 5th day is designed for more exploratory learning, more direct support for students based on need, more opportunities for students and staff to focus on their relationship building, the social emotional piece. We learned that some of our students thrive in our virtual space. Many did not, but some did. So how can we think about this thing called schooling and taking it away from the 1850 model that it was designed for and make it be more modern, so that we're not thinking about schooling within our 4 walls, within a classroom, but schooling can be wherever that child is situated or wherever they. So bringing those real world experiences into the classroom, aligned to standards, but giving teachers more autonomy to think about how that day is structured, to challenge some of the assumptions around Carnegie units, and really expand how students attain credit, particularly at the secondary level. So some of those experiences, those work experiences, are considered appropriate for students to attain the appropriate credits and credentialing for high school. So I think that we have to listen to teachers. We have to look at industry. We have to look at how we did have schooling virtually in our district for 7 months, those lessons that we learned from that experience and ways to replicate that, while understanding that if we want our economy to be viable, our parents need to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to figure out a way to create those spaces so that parents are able to still maintain their quality of life, and we're able to have more agility and flexibility in the school space. And a traditional school day honestly doesn't work for many students.
Yeah. And you briefly kind of hit the 4 to 5 kind of concept there. I know that's been kind of a now touching point of as we look at adding flexibility for staff.
Mm-hmm.
How serious of a conversation do you really kind of think? Because you mentioned lip service and people talking. Like, how serious do you feel that is on the horizon for potentially districts and how they function?
We are very serious in our district. Our high school principal, I always say that a leader is only effective as his or her team. And I have an amazing team here in University City. And so our high school principal has already started to research. We implemented a hub model during the pandemic last year. And so our students were in learning hubs, and we used our Wednesday as a day for check-in with teachers, as a way for additional support. Or if a student was on track, that could be a day of rest, a day just to study individually. So we're looking at that model and seeing what ways we can replicate it and enhance it long term, while being cognizant of the current requirements that we have, but giving teachers and students more flexibility around a 4-day week, with that 5th day being more individualized, more personalized, to tap into students' individual unique needs.
Yeah. Such a exciting time, you think, in this space. I would love to know, how does the state and funding play off of attendance play to all of kind of the decisions in why am I blanking? Decisions in why is St. Louis? It's not Kansas. It is starts with an M. Why am I blanking on your state? Missouri. I wanted to say Minnesota. Missouri. I don't know why. I'm actually going to North Kansas City School District.
Okay.
In March to speak to the students in the high school. So so I was just looking at a map. But yes, Missouri. Yep. I know the state. How's the how's that set up? I know California is looking at potentially going year-based attendance rather than the daily. How's that, would that impact your ability to be more flexible?
So right now, our state has hour requirements. So we have 1,044 hours that we are required to have throughout the year. We will have conversations. We believe that if we're able to justify how those hours are attained, that our approach to some different types of structures would meet those requirements. So
Mhm.
more to come on that. We got a lot of flexibility. We had a lot of flexibility last year, not so much this year. So we're still working through that, understanding what we would need to do at the
Mhm.
state level. But I firmly believe that it always seems impossible until it's done. Mandela said it years ago. So we're going to try it and see what is going to be possible and not think about it from the deficit perspective and what we
Yeah.
can't do, but really trying to think differently because we need to. Our children are screaming, even the ones who are physically engaged. We are seeing a lack of engagement for
Mhm.
many reasons. And we're also, again, I go back to the social emotional needs that we're
Mhm.
seeing. And so we can't just keep going back to school as usual. School didn't work before the
Mhm.
pandemic for many children. So we can't expect that after a pandemic, doing the same thing is going to work for many of our kiddos. So we have to be willing to push the envelope, to ask the right questions, to insist, and to advocate for our children.
Yeah, yeah. And is this something that you see potentially like this upcoming school year, or like the plan coming in place a couple years from now? Like, how do you guys look at these kind of strategies? Is this something you're looking 2 years down the line, or is this something you're like, hey, we're trying to move now?
Well, education, we're kind of slow, but I always tell people we literally went from in-person instruction to virtual instruction with no preparation.
Yeah.
No time to have a committee, no time to plan. We did have a committee, but we have committees, we have committee fatigue. And
Hmm.
so we're ready to do something and not talk about it. Our children are waiting right now.
Hmm.
And so my goal would be to have a different structure minimally at our secondary level very, very soon.
Yeah.
We have some conversations that need to be had with appropriate stakeholder groups across our parents. My students have already asked for this.
Yeah.
Many of them loved the Wednesday kind of individualized structure from a mental health perspective, from a
Hmm.
support perspective. So they have already used their voice and already have advocated for this. And now it's just taking that advocacy and taking that suggestion and actually putting it into reality. So we
Yeah.
are very hopeful that this year there will be something different
Yeah.
minimally at the secondary
Yeah.
level.
So do you see it like they could still go be virtual, or do you see like they will be in class, or like they'll be in school but they have their own time? How do you kind of see some of your current ideation, if you would, around how this could look?
I think that the structure is going to be more of a menu type
Mm.
of opportunity. There are children who need to be in school.
Yeah.
There are students who can benefit from being virtual. There are
Hmm.
students who can benefit from doing service learning on
Mm.
that day. There are students who can benefit from working with the counselor. There are
Hmm.
students who can benefit from working with each other. So
Yeah.
I think that if we want to do this right, there isn't a one size fits all. Our children are not widgets, and we need to stop creating schools that force them all into these boxes. We have to kind of color outside of the lines a bit more and really truly differentiate and personalize the experience. And secondary is really suited for that. If we want
Hmm.
our students to be prepared for college and or career in UCity, we say without remediation, we have to make school mirror what college and or career looks like. And there is flexibility that the workforce wants individuals who can make decisions, individuals who can problem solve, individuals who can collaborate and work together. So we should be giving those experiences in the context of the secondary schooling experience.
Yeah, well, I know you prioritize student voice, and so it's really cool to see you bring that up. Two more questions, and just thank you for your time and kind of giving us an insight of how innovation works from the inside. And what I would love to know is, how does services fit around this, support services, as your kids become more agile, potentially have more flexibility? I know trauma informed practices is really also a high outcome you guys have successfully achieved in your district. How are you looking at support services in this space as well?
So we are still on the trauma informed journey. I always say we will never arrive. It is always a work in progress. I think that our wraparound supports need to meet each child's needs. So we have broadened our service provider pool so we can tap into various resources and supports from therapeutic mental health to more counseling therapeutic supports to family supports to basic care need supports. So it's really looking at whatever that child needs, making sure that there is a solid safety net so that we can meet those needs. And some would argue, well, that's not a school's job. And my response is, if the need is there, I'm not going to place responsibility. If I see the need and we're able to address it and there's a gap that we can fill, it is our responsibility to do that. And so we do this in collaboration with parents, in collaboration with students. It's very with, it's not a to mentality, and it's without judgment. And it really is not from, we think about the deficits. It's really about thinking about the brilliance and the assets that our families and our students bring to us, and knowing that we all need help. No matter how well put together we may be, we all need help. And so it's taking the stigma away from needing support and the stigma away from providing resources that may not be met or may not be addressed if it were not for the school environment.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the time. And my kind of last question here, you gracefully kind of transitioned to it. It was around how much you prioritize humanize kind of strategies and core values of how to support your staff, students, and schools. What would you, for just general public who might see, superintendents in the media and going through all these challenges, how would you like us to see superintendents more human and humanize you guys? What are some things you would like just the general public to know about being a superintendent and things that maybe don't get highlighted as much in y'all's position?
So, wow, that's a pretty loaded question. So I would say that now more than ever, this is a head and heart business. And, as a superintendent, heavy is the head. And so there's a tremendous amount of responsibility, accountability that we carry. The decision-making that we've had to navigate with COVID is unreal. Nothing in my formal education prepared me for where we are now. And we've had to use and tap into skills that honestly, I didn't know that I had. And so I would just say that, and yes, we're highly compensated. So, let's just be clear. And I know that superintendents are daily working to create systems and structures for children to be successful, at least the superintendents that are in my circle. We're all working hard to fight the fight to make sure that our students and our communities have what they need. And I will say that often we don't take care of ourselves and we don't reach out to tap into one another. So I would say practice grace. Give your leaders a bit of grace. We are consistently humble and practice humility in our work, and we understand the stakes. I have yet to meet a superintendent that I respect that doesn't understand the weight of this work. So you don't see all the decisions. I probably make 100 decisions in a day, and they don't all connect. So they're all over the place. You don't see that, but know that the folks who are committed, that are bringing their head and their heart to this work, we're navigating this current space the best way that we know how. And we want the support. We want the feedback. And I believe that feedback is a gift, even if it's critical, because it helps us grow and it helps us get better at what we do. So partner with them, reach out, ask questions, hold them accountable. We all want accountability. But also this thing called grace is needed now more than ever.
I love the feedback as a gift. I think that's a great way. Definitely going to bring it to our team. And then as well as, like you said, you guys have 100 decisions you make a day. So the fact that you gave us some time today means a lot. Dr.
Absolutely.
Hardin, thank you so much for being on ednews.com today, and good luck this year.
Thank you.